The greatest fear of a true Sith is and will always be death. After all, at the end of a lifetime struggle to attain power, what greater horror would there be than to lose it? Long before the heroic adventures of Luke Skywalker, or the tragedy of his father Anakin, or even the legend of the Sithari Darth Bane and the famed story of Revan and Malak, there was a Sith Lord who possessed such a striking fear of death that he dedicated his entire life to subverting it. This being was Darth Andeddu, reigning Sith Lord of his era, and the first Sith to use the Darth title. Darth Andeddu was born on Prakith, shortly after the 100-year darkness that had guided the First Lords of the Sith to Korriban. Andeddu took an immediate interest in the teachings of Karness Moore, one of the 4 founders of the ancient Sith Order. Moore was a biological genius who had created such monstrosities as the Leviathan, and had engineered the Rakghoul Plague that would sweep across the galaxy for 4,000 years. With his prodigious power, he had also expanded the boundaries of dark-side healing far beyond the Sith of his time. Yet for all his knowledge and strength, Moore lacked something that Darth Andeddu possessed in excess: vision. While his fellow Sith squabbled over their mastery of the dark side, over their ability to kill and destroy, Andeddu was interested in more. Indeed, the ancient masters, Ajun Tapal, Zoksan, Sorza Sin, and Karness Moore, had all been great and powerful Sith Lords. But when the time had come, they too had died, fading into history, forgotten to all but a few devoted followers. Andeddu was determined not to meet the same fate. Using the power of the Force, he would conquer death itself. After years of searching, Andeddu had found what he was looking for. In every Force ritual, every Sith spell, and ancient dark side power he had tried, there had always been one fatal flaw: the physical form. No matter how powerful or well constructed his attempts were, his body would inevitably fail him, succumbing to the wrath of time. But in the ritual now sprawled in front of him, he had found a workaround. He had discovered that if one's power in the Force was strong enough, one could technically survive the death of their organic body by usurping control of another. They could override and expel the mind of the target organism, and instill his or her consciousness where another once existed. After all these years, Andeddu had finally succeeded. He had discovered the ritual of essence transfer. Yet for all its potential strength, the ritual was also fraught with danger. Attempting it would cause the current vessel to be destroyed, the body consumed by the overarching power of the dark side. And if an individual would fail to overcome the spirits already residing in the target body, his disembodied soul would be consigned to chaos, destined to suffer for eternity. With this newfound knowledge and power, Andeddu rose both in stature and strength above his fellow Sith. Whereas his mastery of the dark side had always been considerable, Andeddu now found that none could match his awesome power and prodigious knowledge of the Force. Andeddu took the title of Darth, becoming the first Sith in history to do so, and from Korriban, the ancestral homeworld of the ancient Sith, he ruled as Dark Lord. Yet power, especially when absolute, breeds isolation. And as Darth Andeddu's power and influence grew, so too did his fear. He came to believe that his subordinates coveted the power which he had so painstakingly achieved, and the Force abilities which he had spent a lifetime mastering. Consumed by suspicion, Andeddu withdrew from the other Sith Lords, refusing to share his wisdom and intelligence any further. Yet as Andeddu drew further and further back, he found shadows lurking in every corner. His followers grew increasingly frustrated towards a master that would not teach them, and eventually, they banded together to overthrow him. Unable to combat the combined might of all the Sith Lords of Korriban, Darth Andeddu was cast from his throne and forced to flee to his homeworld of Prakith, a planet deep in the galaxy's core, yet possessed by the overwhelming fear that his enemies would find and destroy everything he had worked to accomplish. Andeddu obsessively recorded his knowledge in spellbooks, scrolls, and even a Sith holocron of his own creation, before entombing himself. Surrounded by his books and scrolls, Darth Andeddu, Dark Lord of the Sith, died, content with the idea that he would carry his secrets into death with him. Thus paranoia and fear had consumed the greatest Sith Lord of the Ancient Order, driven the most powerful Dark Lord the Sith of his era had ever known, one that had mastered death itself, to taking his own life. It is the supreme irony of Darth Andeddu's story that his greatest contribution to the Sith Order would only come after his death. 3,000 years after the death of Darth Andeddu, Darth Bane, reigning Dark Lord of the Sith, would turn to Andeddu's holocron as a solution to a growing problem. In Bane's eyes, his apprentice Darth Zana had proven unworthy of the mantle of Dark Lord. She was no longer the young, wandering child he had found on the battlefields of Ruusan, but despite her strength, she had refused to challenge him, waiting instead for the ravages of time to weaken his already deteriorating strength. But to destroy her and train another apprentice, Bane knew he needed more time. He had found an answer in Andeddu's ritual of essence transfer. If Zana was unable to resist Bane's invasion of her mind, she would have proven her unworthiness, and Bane in Zana's form would take another apprentice. Yet if Bane failed, the encounter would demonstrate the efficacy of his rule of two, and the Sith, under the proven power of Darth Zana, would thrive. So it was the knowledge and wisdom of Darth Andeddu that saved the Baneite Order of Sith, and allowed for Darth Sidious, a millennium later, to destroy the Jedi and conquer the galaxy. After the fall of Sidious's galactic empire, another, by the name of Darth Warlock, would seek out Andeddu's hidden knowledge. Alone, he would journey to Prakith in the galaxy's deep core. The following is a report of his journey. It is dangerous here. Established hyperspace lanes twist and break as the clustered stars warp time and space. But there are also secrets here. The oldest stars in the galaxy abide at its heart, and strange worlds circle them. Some come seeking to probe the core and learn these secrets. Others bring danger with them. I, Darth Warlock, the third of that name, come to serve the Lord of the One Sith, Darth Krayt. I am his confidant, advisor, seer, and a master of Sith lore, and although my place is by Krayt's side, it is also his need that has driven me here to the deep core. Once a Jedi, my master was tortured by the Yuuzhan Vong during the war that swept the galaxy. Those cursed creatures implanted him with coral slave seeds, and those biotes now threaten to take over my master's body and leave him a mindless shell. Even with all his strength, Krayt will be unable to resist. So I probed deep into his collection of ancient books of Sith lore, seeking an answer to his affliction in the wisdom of the past. But those tomes gave me nothing. So I turned to one of the few ancient Sith holocrons that had survived the systematic destruction of the Jedi. The holocron of Darth Andeddu. Yet Andeddu refused to share his knowledge, shunning my master as a pretender, unworthy of his secrets. So in exchange, I agreed to re-wake him from his ancient slumber. I was to restore the Dark Lord Andeddu from the dead. That is why I am here, in Prakith, at Andeddu's keep, a forbidding, dark and strange complex, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest city. The broken and unstable territory surrounding the keep only increasing its isolation. It was a crumbling mausoleum, its gates long gone and the gashing and scoring of its walls suggesting some final siege. Yet when I walked into its halls, whispers began from the shadows. Intruder, intruder, intruder. The feral remnants of Andeddu's pathetic cult to the malevolence began to swarm me with their lightsabers. They claimed to be the children of the dark side, yet I crushed them without even lifting my blade. The lone survivor, a humanoid creature that called itself Garloon, seemed to realize that it was outmatched, and agreed to lead me to Andeddu's tomb. We descended the steps of the keep, deeper and deeper into the mountainside, until we reached a large room of books and scrolls. In the center of the room laid an ornate sarcophagus. I activated the holocron of Andeddu, and when its gatekeeper spoke, the tomb lifted from the ground to reveal the shriveled body of Andeddu, very much dead, yet still reeking of the dark side. It was in this moment that Garloon betrayed me, taking the holocron from my hands and placing it on the dead Andeddu's chest. The figure began to glow, the crystal of the rod it held in its hands shaking with the fiery power of the Force. Garloon's eyes too began to boil as Andeddu consumed his physical form, and in a flash of light, Darth Andeddu, the former Dark Lord of the Sith, was once again alive. After a moment, I spoke. Nothing has changed. The Lord of the Sith is in need of your secrets. I will have them. But Andeddu denied me once more. Knowledge is power, and true Sith do not share power. I will give you nothing but your own death. In that moment, he lashed out with the Force, sending torrents of lightning towards me. I managed to absorb his power and began to draw upon the dark side to retaliate, when the floor and walls of the room began to crumble. Shards of stone gathered around Andeddu's form as he rose into the air. The atmosphere crackled with the Force. You are not Sith. The old apprentices of Korriban displayed a higher degree of proficiency than you. You are a pretender. If you are among the best of your new order, then it is nothing. Your master is nothing. You have doubts, Lord Warlock, and doubts can cripple. You follow the vision of another when the only vision you should follow is your own. Your only master should be yourself, or you are a slave. Admit it, slave, Warlock. I had heard enough. No more, I said, scattering the debris with a powerful force wave. I am not a slave. I am a fool to have believed all this. This battlefield, the rock, the magma, the crackling lightning, this is nothing more than a Force illusion. Both arms raised, I drew more deeply upon the dark side than I ever had before. Its power streamed through me, threatening to rip me apart, and every part of my being screamed in pain as I tried to control it. It was only when I relinquished that control, allowed myself to become an unfettered conduit of the Force, that the world, as it had never done before, came into focus. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop. The roaring waves of the lava and the crashing of rocks and debris slowed and were reduced to silence. The illusion flickered back and forth from reality, as if shaking under the power of the Force, and the form of Andeddu, once imposing, seemed small, broken, a lost shell of its old self. In a rush of air, the world, time, the Force started again. But now, the illusion was under my control. You hid from your enemies in a sarcophagus. You fled from Korriban and hid on Prakith, where you buried yourself. Darth Andeddu, Dark Lord of the Sith? No, I sense fear. I felt the power of the dark side gathering within me, and I prepared to unleash it on my now powerless foe. You are a coward, Andeddu, and you hid rather than face your rivals. You do not deserve your knowledge or your power. The lava raced over Andeddu's scrolls and books, and Andeddu, too weak to pierce the illusion of his own creation, roared in fear and anger as his life's work was seemingly burnt to ash. I am destroying you. All trace of you, your holocron, I will also destroy. There will be nothing left. The old ways, your ways have failed. Here, now, we are the Sith. And in a blossoming burst of flame, the spirits of Darth Andeddu disappeared forever from the galaxy. His scorched body dropped to the floor, and the illusion of molten lava and stone faded. Darth Warlock III, right hand of the One Sith, turned and left the room. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.